This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Debrief live here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. So pre-season up and running with the Reds having two mini run-outs to get things going out in Austria. 1-1 draws with both Wacker Innsbruck and Stuttgart in the two half-hour matches. Here to pick through some of the talking points, we have our Blood Red writer, Matt Addison. Matt, what did you make of it? It sort of seemed a bit odd, two half-hour games. Just as they were getting going, they were over.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I can sort of understand it really from Jurgen Klopp's perspective. You don't want to throw the players straight in. They've obviously been training hard, doing double sessions and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's a sensible way of doing it, really. I suppose the difficulty is that you can't always convince other teams to do that same thing. I think the certainly Innsbruck season has already started. They've played a couple of games already for the new campaign. So for them, it was maybe a slightly strange one. But of course, I suppose equal to that is the fact that they get to play against Liverpool. So yeah, it was a good run out for the players. I think there's certain things that we can learn. There's certain things that it's probably a bit too soon to think about. I think, obviously physically it was very, very hot over there. They've been training twice a day. As I say, there's not a great deal, I don't think, that you can kind of learn in terms of where they're at fitness wise, apart from the obvious Van Dijk and Gomez that we don't expect to see this week. But I think in terms of sort of tactics, the fact, for example, that Harvey Elliott was in midfield, I thought was interesting. There is a lot that I think we can sort of gain from those two half an hours. So yeah, fairly valuable overall.
Yeah, let's pick through sort of a fair bit of it. And the first side that played sort of seemed to be very much more the lesser of experience in terms of the sides that did play. And that was one of the things that really did leap out to me, was just how many of these young lads were getting a chance. And a few of them spoke after the games. Tyler Morton in particular, just absolutely thrilled to sort of make his debut, as it were, for the first team.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that I've really liked over the last sort of 18 months or so. I think he's a really, really, top quality player. And I think, for him to play today was obviously a big step. But I think the fact that he did it alongside Jake Kane and Leighton Clarkson, obviously two players that he's played with plenty of times for the under-23s, I think that was really important. And I thought he was one of the standout players. I think Kaide was probably the standout, but certainly after that, I would probably, pick out Tyler Morton. I thought, the forward runs, the sort of desire to get behind the defence, go beyond the front three from midfield, I thought was really good. And I just really like the balance of that midfield, to be honest. Obviously, the number 6, the holding midfielder in Leighton Clarkson, but then you've got the kind of more silky passing player in Jake Kane, who's left-footed, which I think helps with the balance of it. And then Tyler Morton, who's a little bit more creative and forward-thinking. So, yeah, I thought all three of those did okay. I think there's obviously still, a lot of players to come back, and I wouldn't expect to see Tyler Morton for the first team once the season starts. But, yeah, for him, what an opportunity, and I think he took it really well tonight.
Yeah, that first game, as well as sort of inexperienced players, were sort of the lads coming back from injury, as it were, in Trent, Alexander-Arnold and Joel Matip in the sort of centre of that defence as well. You've already mentioned Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez, not expecting to see them this week, but it is sort of, I suppose, just showing throughout the squad there are players at very different stages of their recoveries and returns.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's fantastic to see Matip is back. It's a bit of a shame that we've not been able to see Gomez and Van Dijk, and certainly won't for the rest of this week. I don't think it'll be sort of next week, which kind of leads you to think that possibly Konate and Matip would be the ones to start against Norwich on the opening day of the season. But I thought there was, certainly some impressive stuff from both of them there tonight. I think, again, it's very difficult. It's very early. It's, not the biggest of games or, crowds or anything like that. Not the best quality necessarily, but I thought they both did okay. I think we saw, a big thing that I saw certainly with Konate was the fact that he was stepped right up onto that halfway line. I think at times last season, Liverpool struggled a little bit with Phillips and Kabak and whoever else played there, sort of dropping in and being a little bit deeper. Konate quite clearly is used to playing that high line, obviously does that fairly frequently did that fairly frequently for Nagelsmann at Leipzig. So that was good to see. And obviously whenever there is a ball played behind him, you can see that pace and sort of speed that he's got. Very, very exciting to see. And yeah, I think that would have always been the case, but certainly after what happened last season at centre-back, I think that's a real positive.
Yeah, most certainly. Yeah, in terms of that first game, then I suppose before we kind of move on to mention, obviously, the 2 goals, the penalty early on, one by Owen Beck, who's recently, of course, signed his first professional deal with the club. Divock Origi sticking that one away. And then the goal at the other end, a very precise header, but the lesser spotted Loris Karius back in Liverpool colours may well have been able to do a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really matter, does it? He's not going to play for Liverpool next season. It's one of those that he's playing. It's not something I think we should get caught up on, to be honest. I think that just in terms of the penalty, I mean, it was a little bit harsh, I think. I don't know what you thought of it, but
yeah,
it didn't particularly look like a penalty to me. I think there was actually one in the second game that was more of a penalty than that first one. But yeah, anyway, it's one of those. It gave Divock Origi an opportunity, which, to be fair to him, it was a good penalty into the corner, and who knows, maybe that sort of can give him a little bit of a confidence boost, or possibly even put him into the window for a possible sale. I know West Ham have been rumoured with him, or rumoured with a move for him of late. I still think it would be best for him to move on, but I thought there was a few good signs for him there, and he is one of those players that it does sometimes just take that little thing to click and get him in the right headspace almost to play and give him that bit of confidence. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that was it. Maybe that was his last Liverpool goal. Who knows? Let's see.
Yeah, for me, the hint maybe within there as well was the fact he played through the middle. We've so often seen him off the left in particular, but for, I suppose, the more experienced 11, the players who are more sort of attuned to full fitness, even at this early stage of pre-season, it was Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain who played in that false 9 Bobby Firmino position, and he played well there.
He did. He was really impressive, actually. I know he was sort of joking earlier in the week about potentially taking Roberto Firmino's place, but I really do think that is the position for him next season. If he wants to be in this Liverpool team regularly, I think it is going to have to be through the middle in that number 9 role. That's where we saw him last season. It's clearly something that Jurgen Klopp and Pep Lijnders and the rest of the coaching team have been working on. It's clearly something that they want him to do. I know he will want to play midfield. He's always said all the way through his career that is the place that he feels he's best. But I just think it's really, really hard to get into that Liverpool midfield. He's obviously going to play on the right-hand side of a midfield 3 if he does play in there. That's obviously where Jordan Henderson plays. If Henderson's not there, it's going to be Thiago. You've got Keita, Milner, all of these other players. I think it's much, much easier to see him getting a few games through the middle because obviously, at the moment, Diogo Jota will be back tomorrow, but there's not really any other obvious quality option to sort of play in that role. So I think it is an opportunity for him. I was quite impressed. He certainly looks sharp. The reports coming out of Liverpool have suggested that the coaching staff are really pleased with the way that he's been playing. He looks really sharp. And I think we saw that, certainly in that half an hour that we got from him today. I think that was pretty impressive. So something to watch out for. It'll be interesting once Jota is back and fully up to speed, whether they'll, the same for Roberto Firmino as well, of course, who's not there at the moment. But I think it's something to watch out for certainly next season. And if Liverpool don't sign another forward player, that would be certainly a big thing for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I'm not saying that necessarily won't happen or that he is the alternative, but I think there was, certainly promising signs from him tonight.
Yeah, there were definitely promising signs from him. As you say, it was sort of something trialled last pre-season that we kind of forgot about given sort of the injury he got at the end of the pre-season campaign, and that kind of kiboshed that one for him. But in terms of other things to pick out, you mentioned Kaide Gordon from the first game before, but also Harvey Elliott. For me, those two really the standout players for Liverpool in either game. Gordon, very sort of slinky, and you can see he's still very slight. He's a young lad who's probably yet to really fill out type thing. But Harvey Elliott coming back from Blackburn, he looks as though he's coming back with a point to prove.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, that both of them really sort of, it looked like watching them that they felt that they had a point to prove. I think with Kaide Gordon, he's not 17 until October. It's almost a case of proving to the rest of his teammates and proving to Liverpool fans that he is, rightfully in there. And I think we certainly saw that. We know from last season, he started the season training every day with Wayne Rooney and the senior team at Derby County. Really impressed there. He was, by all accounts, one of the best players in training for Derby's senior team. Obviously, Liverpool is a step up. I think he'll still be with the under-18s primarily, possibly the under-23s next season. But I think we certainly saw a lot from him. And as you say, Harvey Elliott. Again, really impressive. There's not really too many better role models for somebody who's come into the club, really highly rated, really young, has played at senior level in the past. I mean, Harvey Elliott is that example, isn't he? I mean, he's slightly older. Obviously, what he did last season at Blackburn was really impressive. And, we did see him a little bit in that sort of midfield role for Blackburn. Not a huge amount. It tended to be sort of on the right-hand side, obviously. But I think next season, it's really something to watch out for. Obviously, I said, before, the fact that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain might find it easier to get into the forward line. I think it's the opposite with Harvey Elliott. I think he might find it easier to come into that midfield, because you look at, obviously, Mohamed Salah plays on the right-hand side. He's not obviously going to get the minutes there, because as soon as Salah's fit, he is going to play pretty much every game. But then you think as well about Xherdan Shaqiri. I think he's the obvious one that Harvey Elliott would look at and want to take on those minutes, similar to what Curtis Jones did with Adam Lallana last season. I think if Harvey Elliott's going to take on that sort of Xherdan Shaqiri role, he's probably going to have to play in midfield, because I think we certainly saw that in sort of October, November time. That was the position that Shaqiri was coming on and impressing in. So I think that's certainly something to watch out for as well. And yeah, I mean, in one of my post-match pieces tonight, I've sort of compared that kind of role long-term, maybe as a kind of David Silva role. I'm not sort of saying in terms of the quality or anything like that. You don't want to put too much pressure and compare Harvey Elliott to anybody, but I think he's got that kind of ability. He can pick a pass. He's not necessarily as quick as a Mane or a Salah. He's maybe better in that slightly more withdrawn role. And I think, as I say, that could be something to watch out for, not just next season, but probably long-term as well.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know how it's taken us so long to get onto Konate, because we have mentioned him already passing, but of course it was his sort of first chance to make an impression for Liverpool fans, chance to get to see him as well. But it's a very different setup to what he's going to be around. Obviously, Conor Bradley was playing at right back. He was alongside Reece Williams and Adrian behind him. I mean, Liverpool's injury worries were bad last season. There'd have to be an awful lot worse for that to kind of be a defensive system he's going to find himself in next season.
Yeah, you certainly would. I mean, there was a couple of nervy moments, wasn't there, from Adrian and from Reece Williams as well, giving the ball away, which probably didn't help. But I thought he looked composed. He looked really good, I thought. And he's one of those players that I think you've got the sort of basics that you want. I mentioned before the high line. He's used to doing that. Obviously, Liverpool is slightly different. But I think, again, as you say, once you've got, Van Dijk or Matip alongside him or Joe Gomez throughout the season, I think we'll just see him get better and better. And I think it's obviously very difficult to make a judgment. It's only 30 minutes. It's pre-season. It wasn't the best quality of opposition. It was very hot, all of those sorts of things. But on what we've seen so far, I think I was pretty impressed by him. And I think the fact that he got through it, there was no real errors. There was no real sort of panicky moments or anything like that. I think that's the sort of relief. And I like the fact at the end as well, he was a bit sad, he said, that Liverpool didn't win. So, yeah, that's always good to see.
He also sort of seems as though, to me, he's going to fit in well, because as soon as the goal went in against Liverpool, he was immediately looking around saying, what's gone on there? Why has that happened? But in terms of going up the other end and getting a goal back in the game, I don't know if the linesman was maybe quite as far along in pre-season as he should be. Sadio Mane may be in an offside position when he nicked the goal off Kostas Tsimikas, who for me was one of the real bright sparks in that second game. And I wouldn't want to say sort of a surprise, because we didn't really get to see him last season, but he showed what he was all about.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the first sort of signs of what we saw, or what we were told last summer when he came in, was that he was pretty much a carbon copy of Andy Robertson in terms of style and all of that sort of thing. Obviously not at the same level, but we've not, as you say, really seen a huge amount of him. Again, he's in a sort of team that you wouldn't expect him to be picked in if he was playing in the Premier League at some point next season. It would be a much stronger sort of group of players who were around him. But yeah, I was impressed. I thought he did everything he needed to do defensively. Obviously, nearly got a goal, did get an assist. I think, to sort of come into a team and make an impression. Obviously, we talk about pre-season and all of the caveats and all of that stuff. But I think for him, pre-season really is an opportunity, because there's no Robertson for now. Obviously, he'll be coming back at some point, and we know that he is that first choice. But we saw how limited his minutes were last season. If he gets the odd 5 minutes, the odd 10 minutes, or the 30 minutes today, in future, you'd imagine he'd get, sort of 45 minutes in these sort of games from Mainz and various other teams moving forward. The fact that he's not got those minutes last season, he's got to take every single chance. And I think he did that tonight and started to show really that Liverpool have brought him in as a proper sort of understudy to Robertson, and they will trust him, I think, in future, because the signs were really quite good there.
Yeah, probably playing a bit of catch-up himself. And he had that brilliant touch as well, didn't he? When the ball went over the top of the back line, he flicked it back over, brought it down, nearly lost control of it, but he was able to. I think it was Naby Keita who was able to find with the pass. But yeah, that is it then from today's action. Matt, of course, now it's kind of looking ahead to Mainz and just continuing to kind of build up the minutes, and I suppose that understanding amongst everyone through pre-season, and back to sort of what we were talking about at the start with Van Dijk and Gomez, maybe chance to see Matip and Trent move more towards what was that second side we saw.
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's just a case of minutes for now. It's obviously the first opportunity for these players to play a semi-competitive game. So I think that's important. And I think going forward, we'll start to see more of the kind of relationships develop. I'd be surprised, for example, if we didn't see Matip and Konate line up together a few times ahead of the new season. You think of sort of Trent and Mo Salah on that right-hand side, things like that. I mean, obviously they know each other inside out. They've played together for a long time now, but it's just about getting back into that groove and making sure that, when the opportunity comes, when it comes to it on the first day of the season, they're absolutely at it. And I think, the signs are good so far. As we say, it's hard to sort of make too much of a judgment at this moment in time. But I think what we've seen so far is that, Jurgen Klopp is pretty happy with what he's seeing. Who knows, there might be another couple of signings to add before that first home game. So yeah, plenty of stuff to sort of think about for Liverpool, but so far, so good.
Yeah, a couple of pre-season run-outs then under the belt for the Reds, and Jurgen Klopp watching on out in Austria. Next up is Mainz, but that's it from us for this edition here on the Debrief live on the Blood Red YouTube channel. From myself, Guy Clarke, and Matt Addison, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.